Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shaman Sister Sessions, episode 80. Oh my gosh, 80 episodes. I'm Michelle Hawk, and I'm here with my shaman sister, Katherine Bird. And today we are delighted to welcome special guest, Chris Wilborn. Aside from being a rad human, she is a money expert. And as we've been spending this whole month of September looking at healing in business and finances, naturally, she was the person that we wanted to invite. We'll be discussing the neuroscience of money, money stories and beliefs, and some really practical tools around how we can bring more awareness, more tools, more financial aspects into what it means to be a light worker and serve in the world. Chris helps creative entrepreneurs open their bank accounts and love what they see. I know everybody can use that. She uses neuroscience and psychology of personal transformation to help practitioners understand why their financial goals and plans don't come to fruition and why they feel resistance and avoidance with their money. Chris combines her experience as a master life coach, master NLP practitioner, and degrees in behavioral psychology and applied neuroscience to help entrepreneurs transform their money habits to build an unstoppable business. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. It's a pleasure. And Kat, how are you doing?
I'm really great.
Beautiful. And yeah. I know we were chatting before we started recording just to tune everybody in. Chris was just a guest on a masterclass immediately prior to coming here. So she's all warmed up, has some amazing tools ready to go. And ideally, we will hopefully have the link to share that recording with you as well. So please be on the lookout as we post the recordings of this and tune into the other masterclass for
cool.
more. Yeah. So Chris, I know, when you and I were talking initially about having you come on, we were sharing a little bit about what we're doing for our audience, our listeners this month. And I'm curious, as we invited you here, what came up for you and what are you really excited to delve into today?
Yeah, I guess I get really excited about talking about this topic because I know it can feel like a very taboo topic to talk about. It can, for a lot of people, there's a lot of shame and guilt around money and finances. So my goal is always to make sure people feel safe and to make sure that they come out with it feeling like it's possible for me. Like I can do this. Like that's always my goal because I want people to feel like they can set themselves up to succeed with very simple tools and gain some momentum in their business or their life around money that gets them closer to their goals in a way that's not scary. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of collective wounding and individual wounding. And I know, Kat, we've talked about this on a variety of episodes.
Absolutely. And it's like the thing that we all want and have desire, and we have so many stories around it. And it's something that we don't want to talk about, even though it's one of the most present things that we have going on in our lives, whether we have enough money coming in or we feel like we're being successful or whatever those things are. It's always present. And yet it's the thing that we want to push away the most and not deal with, yet it's the thing that we want the most. So we have this crazy relationship with money, and especially as healers who are entrepreneurs, translating this amorphous, mystical healing, how do you put your finger on it thing into cash dollars can be one of the most challenging things ever.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. I think it's that you really honed in. It's really not the money itself. It's our relationship to money that carries all the weight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, when we talk about, for some reason, it blows my mind, and I've definitely been guilty of this too. And Chris, perhaps you can speak to this. We look at, I am totally capable. I am an intelligent human. I can read, I can research, I can learn skill sets. And yet when we look at money, it's like all of that goes out the window.
Like,
no,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, totally. That lizard brain will always override the logical one. So it's like, yeah, that totally makes sense. I see it in theory, and I know I'm an intelligent, capable human being. Why can't why can't I change my circumstance?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of those. What are the most,
So why? Tell us why.
So what do we do, Chris?
What do we do? Change your whole personality. No, I'm kidding. Okay, what's your question? What's the question?
As we're looking at this, this idea of money plays by different rules when really it doesn't. What are some of the most common challenges or roadblocks that you see practitioners and creative entrepreneurs, healer entrepreneurs get into as they're coming up against these money challenges?
Yeah, I think that one of the big ones I see is like people thinking they'll just magically be good with money once they have it. So it's like, I may not have it right now, but when I have it, like, I'll know exactly what to do with it and everything will be easy peasy. The problem is we become more of who we already are when we have more money. Mm-hmm. So this happened to me, and my business was like, my habits just got magnified the more money I had. So I think there's a big misconception of like, well, when I have it, I'll know what to do with it. Well, there might be reasons why you don't have it now that are affecting your ability to make more and have the systems in place for once you have it that actually work in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll out myself on that one for sure, because I know that I have in my business, I know from one year to the next, I actually doubled my income. And I was like, don't feel any different. There's no tangible experience inside my reality where I actually feel, I can go, yes, I'm grateful. I feel more successful. I've made more money. But the real world on the ground experience that I was having in terms of what was in my bank account wasn't in reflection of that. I was just upped my like expenditures out. Oh, I need to do this and hire this and all of these things. It was like, I'm still having the same experience even when I'm making more money. So right. I think that's a big one for me for sure.
Exactly. That's exactly the same. Like thinking that it's that better future fallacy. I know, Michelle, you've heard me talk about that, is in the future, I will act as my ideal self more so than I will right now. And we won't. We just won't. We're habitual beings, and whatever habits we're exuding now, once you have more money, it's just going to get exacerbated and magnified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the habits, when you have $100, it's a little easier to disguise poor money management habits than when you have $100,000 or $1 million, right? Then it's like massive money problem. Yeah, correct. It's in the wise words of some rapper, mo money, mo problems. Right? And quote that. But as we look at this, just to remind everybody, in case you missed last week's episode, we talked about prosperity consciousness. And just to, insert that here, you can go back and listen to the recording, but remembering that prosperity consciousness is the ability to function easily and conveniently in the world, whether you have money or not. So almost this idea, today we're talking about money. We're talking about you're putting money in the equation. You have money, but still the prosperity consciousness coming with it is the ability to function easily and conveniently and not be in stress, panic, survival about our money, instead of the stress to finances, bringing the sacred to our financial relationship.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I think when we talk about, I can be more of the left brain analytical, by the numbers, by the book person, which is great. But I also think there's such an emotional component to money. But where I'm going with this is like, at the end of the day, your bank account doesn't lie. Like all of your habits are actually in your bank account. You just don't want to look at them. So, but my point is like, I think we wait till we have money to set up our organizing systems for that money. What if you just started organizing it today and they have this like, easy flow of where it needs to go and with intention, and versus like, I'll wait till I have money to organize it or have a system for it. Mm-hmm. Do that now so that it has a place to live and it's well thought out and has a great intention and a flow to it that is in alignment with what you want.
Totally. Love that. And I'd love to circle back to that as we're looking at some of the tools and techniques. And for right now, I'm curious, Chris, what other challenges and roadblocks do you see? You talked about the idea of when I'll know what to do when I have it.
Yeah.
What other big fallacies or mistakes or myths do you see?
Yeah. I think people are told to follow your passion and not the money, which is very interesting because yes, follow your passion. And if you're going to run a business, it has to be a viable business at the end of the day that can make you money. We all have to eat. We all want shelter. We all have that. If your business isn't viable enough to make money, then yes, passion will only get you so far. So at the end of the day, I think, yes, you need passion and the money has to speak for itself where it's actually a viable business. And what I mean by viable business is that it generates some kind of value to the world in exchange for that money. And that can be in like the offer, the pricing. Money's just feedback. I mean, honestly, it's like, okay, I have this offer to the world. If people accept that offer, the money's the feedback where it was aligned with what your passion was, right? So we got to line all those things up. So yes, you need the passion, but is your business viable where actually people will pay you for it in exchange for that value you offer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I see that with so much love. But genuinely looking at, it's that Venn diagram of, the ideal thing is the thing that you love to do, the thing that the world needs, the thing that people will pay you for.
Yeah.
And I think there's a fourth one, right? Yeah.
There is on some models, there's a fourth one. I can't remember.
You're right. Yeah. But that intersection, that's exactly what you're describing right there.
Yeah.
And with that, I love that looking at money is the feedback. Money is the, universal currency. It's that life force, the vitality coming in to say like, yes, here you go. You have the system set up in place to do this in a healthy way. And this is a way that you're effectively being of contribution to the world.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other circle is that which you are good at. Awesome. Thank you, Zoe.
Perfect.
Our audience chiming in.
Yeah. It'd be helpful if you're really good at it, right?
Yeah. Sometimes we want to do things, we're super passionate about them, and we're really not that maybe. So.
Yeah, totally. We suck at it.
Right. I'd love to lead dolphin tours, and I've got all the other three. People would love that. People would pay for that. I'm really good at the animal communication, but I don't know how to drive a boat. So like that's just not happening.
You can hire out for that.
Yeah, you get somebody to do that part.
Okay, maybe it's not off the table yet. Beautiful. Cool. So as we're looking at some of these, like what are the beliefs behind this? You spoke to the belief that once I have money, I'll be better with it. And I don't have to deal with it until it's there. But as we're looking at money stories, what do we see behind the money stories and beliefs, and then the neurological influences behind why are we behaving this way?
That's a loaded question. Yes. Yeah, the beliefs thing is huge, and we do who we are. So I just want people to think about that for a second. We will only act in alignment in accordance with who we are and what we believe. So your actions are actually kind of a lag indicator of like what's going on up here in your head. So let me just prove this point here. Are either two of you smokers?
No.
If I asked you to smoke 5 packs today of cigarettes, could you do it?
No.
Not without a lot of vomiting.
Violently ill.
Why? Why couldn't you do it?
Because I'm not a smoker.
You hear that? I am not a smoker. She identifies as not a smoker. Mm-hmm. So think about that for a minute. That behavior does not align with her identity. So if you think money is bad or evil or it's scary in some kind of way, that is all as a result of who you are being and an identity that you have operated from for mm-hmm. however long, from whoever your influences is growing up probably. So we cannot actually act out of alignment with who we are in our identities would be like a hell no.
I've actually never even smoked a single cigarette. So like,
it doesn't fall in line with your identity.
yeah.
So
Let's call, I mean, I'm curious, Chris, can we call out some of these beliefs here? She'll tune in. I'm not good with money. I shouldn't have to deal with money to do the thing that I love. Like the idea that somehow money doesn't, like I'm not doing it for the money.
Yep.
Yeah.
So probably in the bigger aspect, you want money.
Yeah. Used to be there.
I am a behavioral psychologist, so to speak, where I really do focus on habits, but I truly believe in the identity informs the habit. So I really want this point to kind of come home. Yeah, Victoria said, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right. And so the idea of maybe also I'm not allowed to ask for money, especially for those of us tuning in who were using the word gift, like our healing gifts. I'm not allowed to charge for what is a gift.
Right.
Yeah.
So how are all these things
that's one of the biggest challenges. I can only ask for money up to a certain amount. I love that you brought that in. That's a super important
She's got a threshold that somewhere in her identity believes that's all I can do. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or ask for.
Great.
It's interesting because it really starts to explain a lot that's going on, right, in our daily activities, and especially when it comes to a business. Like, why aren't I getting the results I want? Well, who do you actually need to become to get the results that you are requiring from yourself or expecting from yourself? Your goals are just expectations you set for yourself. So if I'm expecting this for myself, but my identity is so hardwired over here to say, but that doesn't really go with my goal, we're always going to be in conflict, and it's going to be a huge mountain to climb to get there, because that's always going to be the thing that's holding you back from getting what you want. Not the actual money itself, but the identity. Yeah.
So all is not lost. What do we do, Chris?
Well, there's the fast way, and then there's the slow way.
Which one is the most effective way?
Well, having done personal transformations for years, I have to say that the most sustainable way for most people is to build in these micro, simple, easy habits that you can actually accomplish with consistency over time. And so you can actually live into the new identity that you want to become with those tiny habits. And the fast way, not necessarily sustainable, but it can really help, is people who can actually flip their identity overnight. And that has actually happened to me multiple times, where a really bad event had to happen and trigger me and raise a high frequency of emotional intensity, where I was like, I have to completely change. This is like my rock bottom moment. And I woke up a different person, looked 7 years younger, like all my chronic pain left my body. So that was a complete identity shift, and for the better. But then I had to maintain that identity. I had to do daily habits and really keep myself in check with the habit side of like, okay, I have to stay in alignment with this because I'm never going back to that person. So the fast way is, yes, I've seen it with people and in myself, where you can actually flip your identity overnight. But for most people, it's going to be that slow, consistent change of micro habits that pull you towards the identity you wish to become. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to, Kat, what was the episode that we did about that? Was it the integration episode?
Probably that would be one to go back and look at. And what it sounds like you're speaking to here is that integration aspect of, as healers, we know that when we're working with people or we're going through some sort of process ourselves, or we go to do something that's a high intensity, ceremony, a really deep healing, some fasting, we're doing something intensive. And then there's that, okay, is that this, wow, I just had these amazing realizations and I have all this breakthrough. But it's really the other side of how do you start to implement these new practices in your life if you don't have access to the energy practices or the whatever, these banking and back end practices, then if they don't exist for you, then there's no way to keep incorporating that and to keep that ball rolling.
And that's a great point, because what happens for most transformational experiences like you're talking about is people will have those moments of, I'll say, a momentary form of transformation. Like say they go to a retreat or something and have this phenomenal experience, but they get back to their normal environment where all their triggers are and where all their natural things that keep them exactly who they are present. And so they have this great transformation in the outside environment, but then they go back to their home environment where all their stuff gets lit up and keeps them where they are. That is a huge resistor to change, right? And really focusing on what you can set yourself to succeed in without even blinking. Like if I told Ash, like make it so easy that you'd actually be embarrassed if you couldn't do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then this really comes down to, to do a little bit of translation here. The micro habits that you're talking about then equate to everything that we've talked about on this show in terms of personal practice, and where it's, yes, you go in and you have the ceremony or have the healing session or have this mind-blowing shamanic journey, but then that's the tip of the iceberg. That's just the inspiration and the impetus for change. But then everything that you do every single day after that is the thing that's actually going to create the change. And so, treating your money habits with as much reverence and honoring as you do your personal daily practice, that is where, when we bring this in, this is how we create that foundation, because it's really foundation. It's, it's the difference between, okay, I'm going to look at my money once a year, or I'm going to go to ceremony once a year, and that's going to take care of my spiritual need. Our game performance is an indicator of what have we been doing every single day. Yeah. Cool. Okay. We had somebody chat in too saying, how do we change that part of ourselves? Just saying it to ourselves. It sounds like you're referring to affirmation. That is a powerful component of shifting and transformation and affirming new identity. Absolutely. It is a piece, and it is only a piece.
Right. Because if your identity isn't aligned with the affirmation, you're still going to butt heads with yourself.
Yeah.
At a foundational level. So part of it is questioning your beliefs. I mean, being really open-minded to questioning everything you believe about stuff. And it can be very complex into deep-rooted stuff where you take months or years to uncover, or it could be a simple thing. Like for me, I was always taught that in order to make money, you have to spend money. Guess what I did in my first business? I spent a lot of money and had nothing to show for it, because I was embedded in this belief in order to make money, I had to spend it. So that's exactly what I did. And then one day I was like, this really isn't working for me anymore. I knew exactly where my belief came from. And I was like, that's not mine. And I realized like, that is not mine. And I decided from that day forward, I'm going to make money and keep money. And I completely changed my behaviors because of that awareness. And that was a simple example, but it really changed the trajectory of my whole business. But I had to come to a point where I was like, this isn't working for me anymore. That emotional intensity level was like, I can't do this anymore this way.
Yeah.
And I realized where that belief stemmed from.
Yeah. And it's interesting that a lot of times the people who are saying you have to spend money to make money are the people who are trying to get you to buy something.
Sure. Well, that came from my father. So sorry if you're listening, Dad, but I X that. I don't think he was trying to sell me anything, but.
But you're speaking to such a vital part of this is how many of our money beliefs do we inherit, whether it's through our ancestry or through societal inheritance or through energetic inheritance. Is, we come into the world having absolutely no ideas about money. I can guarantee our first ideas about money were not ever ours. It's what we were taught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that simple like disassociation of that's not mine, I don't need to own it anymore, was enough for me to be like, oh, awesome. That feels lighter. Great. Yeah.
Beautiful. So how do we go about identifying and really coming into clarity around what our belief structure is around money?
Like I said, if you want to see what really you're holding on to as an identity, just check out your habits and your behaviors. I mean, what are you actually doing? Because you're unconscious. We run our days on autopilot. Like probably 95 to 99% of our day is run unconsciously. We just get into these habitual roles, habitual patterns, routines, and we don't even stop to think about what we're doing. So whatever patterns you're running and programs you're running are stemming from your identity. So if you actually want to see what you're believing, look at how you're behaving.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know for me, when I was a child, my mom had a lot of she rage and just uncontrolled, ridiculous behavior. And so when she would do something and act like a jerk, then to make up for it, she would take me shopping and, buy me new clothes or buy me something. So I realized that if I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling like something isn't right with me, that one of my first go-tos is let me go buy something. Let me make myself feel better by buying something new. And that isn't something that I have been very much I have to watch myself. Even just going to the grocery store, I will overspend based on the emotional, underlying emotions that I have going into the store.
That's huge. Thank you for bringing up that and sharing that story, because what you've done is, have you ever heard the term for what gets fired together gets wired together? So we build these neurological associations because our brains want to make things as simple as possible, because it doesn't have time to dissect every single thing in our environment. So it's oh, well, okay, that's easy. I associate feeling bad with spending something to feel better. You just linked those two things together. Now, what I would actually dive deeper into is part of you probably also associated, okay, when my mom raged, she went and took me shopping as kind of a apology or something. Now I've associated that need for love and connection with money with my mom. Well, now we've got love and connection from my mom equals money. So it starts to spiral a little bit. And then you're like, well, how am I going to get that need met? Well, spending. And then I'd say, well, how can you get love and connection need met without money? And start to see if that starts to mend something. It might not mend all of it,
right?
But there's a deeper level that's getting met in a different way. And it's not about money.
Right.
But your brain has associated the two. Incorrectly, inaccurately. And my brain is that my dad used to do the same thing for me. If he made a mistake or blew up at my mom, he would go buy me something. So I have a distinct fire and wire of, oh, my dad only loves me when he spends money on me. So we're just, that's just human behavior, unfortunately. But if we can start to say, what other ways can I get love and connection met with my father or with my mother in different ways, it might start to, or with the people around me, without having to spend my money to get that need met. That can actually heal a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in so doing, I get to also heal some of my mother's stuff for me, and also my mother's stuff, right? Because she still will have that tendency, and yet she's been also working through that and breaking that those two things mean the same, right? That
right.
Love is this.
Right. Exactly. There's, yeah. She's got her own stuff around what her associations are with you too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's so powerful, and then looking at, I won't necessarily share a whole story here, but looking at even beyond just our parents, but, ancestors before that, so my parents had money, and I grew up with money, but before that they had nothing. They are the first people, like the first generations in both of their families, and the first people in both of their families to actually have any financial means. And so, carrying depression era wounding, looking at my patterns of like, I can't throw anything away because I might need it later and I don't want to have to put it right. So like all of these habits in addition to money, I'll insert that there as a pattern. We're talking about this with money, but we can look at this pattern. The way we do something is the way we do everything.
Correct.
We'll look at also the way, remember last week on Prosperity Consciousness, we were talking about equating how we treat money with the way that we treat our life force. So look at, how do we treat our health and well-being? How do we treat our emotional intimacy with other people? How do we treat our energy practice? And I know for a lot of us, under stress, personal practice is the first thing to go. Equals under stress, money is the first thing to go. We're going to spend money when we're stressed out. And so
revert back to your habits of prior. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious what some of these micro habits are that you were referencing, Chris. What are some of these pieces that we can use, knowing that we are implementing a different way of being and creating a different belief structure and identity? What are some of the ways that we can reinforce that on the daily?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because I think, there's that we talked about at the beginning, like I'll do it when I have it. Well, why not have it when I do it? Kind of flipping that mentality. So like, for example, if you were wanting to start saving some money, like don't wait till you have a certain amount to start saving. Like open a savings account, and I don't care if you put $1 in there a month. Mm-hmm. Well, you're actually acting into the behavior that you're desiring. Mm-hmm. And so something as simple as like, I'm sure the three of us could say, let's open a bank account, and each of us could put $1 in there a month, and it will be no skin off our back, right? Like that's how, like stupid simple. That might be really extreme. I'm sure we could all do $5, but like you got to start somewhere, and things will start to build momentum. With the amount of people I work with, their business finances, they're often shocked at once we implement some of these small habits and systems, how dramatically their revenue increases magically. But because I feel like they're putting more intention into being responsible with their money through their habits, that they're getting rewarded in an exuberant way for actually taking it seriously and saying, I respect my money, I'm going to be responsible with it, and then I have something to show for that.
Yeah. It just makes me think of a lot of times when we're having conversations here, we're talking about the energy behind everything, right? Mm-hmm. And coming from that spiritual perspective of everything is alive, right? Everything is vibrating, everything is resonating at certain frequencies. And what we put our attention toward, if we are working with a spiritual being or a certain energy, something that we're working with, we build that altar and we pray and we do the work and we invite it in and we cultivate our meditations with it, then that grows in our life and we have a deeper connection and we have more of it. And so it just makes sense what you're saying, these like little things you do. Oh, I'm putting out, an offering to the spiritual being. I'm welcoming it into my life. And then oh, I'm, doing a spreadsheet and I'm putting money in the savings account. I'm welcoming it into my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the conversation Michelle and I had about, like, follow my path and I'll be supported.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about, yes, and you have to act on that path. There's a lot of action that needs to happen on that path. And go ahead, Michelle, what were you going to say?
I was just going to give everybody a little bit of background of why that came. So when we were discussing, Chris and I met last week, and we talked about, what are some of the common fallacies or ideas that we see show up in the community. And this is something I know Kat and I have talked about on here, the idea of, if I follow my path and I do my work, I will be supported. This really, like, idea that has some basis of, yes, when we move in alignment, things tend to flow a little easier, but it's not enough on its own. And it blows my mind a little bit that we're looking to build professional healing practices. I know at least some of us on here are at least current practitioners or aspiring practitioners. This is something that I had to work through, sort of that blind faith of, I'm following my path and that's enough. No, it's not. It's a yes and this is what Chris is referencing, and I'd love to hear, what is that and?
Yeah. So in keeping this all aligned here, I always ask the question, like, am I getting enough air? And air is an acronym, right? Because if you stop breathing, you die. So it's really important. So am I getting enough air? And am I giving the thing I want enough attention, and the right attention, intention, and repetition? So that's where the habits come in. So when we think about A in air, attention, where's my focus? Am I focused on losing money? Am I focused on, making money? Am I focused on not having enough money? Because I guess it's going to show up. So where is my focus? Where is my attention? What story am I telling myself about what's going on in my attention? So I like to think of, like, life is this way or that way because we think it is this way or that way. It actually isn't. So we go looking for evidence to prove whatever we think is real, right? So our attention and how we care for our attention and where we're focusing it is really important. Because you could be focused on the negative or the positive, and the negative can just spiral into not so fun results, right? We've all been there. It's hard to get out of that spiral. Now, the intention part is, what are my intentions? What's the emotional tone of those intentions? And what are my attachments? So we make things important by the meaning we give it, right? So are you clear on why you're doing this? Like, why am I setting out to achieve this goal? Be very clear about that. And emotion is an amplifier. I think the more you're bought into your idea with conviction, the more clear it's going to be, and the easier the path will be. And then the repetition is really, that's your actions. Like, what's the top of mind awareness every single day? What are those habits that are actually going to move me and move the needle forward towards what I'm focusing all my attention on? And are you putting enough repetitions in every day to get the results you're wanting? So that's kind of a nice little package. Like, are you getting enough air on your goals and your focus? I hope that helps a little bit.
Love that.
Okay.
Yeah. And people go ahead, chat in. How's that landing for you? How is all of this landing? We've had not a ton of involvement in the chat box. I'm wondering, is that because people are in their headlights? Are people feeling overwhelmed? Are people taking notes? Go ahead and share. How's this landing for you? And as we're kind of waiting for people to tune in, Chris, I'd really love to hear, what pieces of advice do you have for new or aspiring practitioners? And then any pieces of advice for people who have been doing this for a while, for practitioners who have an established business?
Yeah. So I can also expand on that air piece if people have questions. But I think for beginners, is just get ahead of your money stuff as soon as you can. Like, the stories, the beliefs, the identity, even the habits, like, the sooner you can actually be brave and courageous and face your fears on that kind of stuff, the better off you're going to be down the line. I really wish that I was well aware of what my habits and my beliefs were around money before I started a business, because they came and they bit me in the butt really fast. So getting ahead of those and really starting out with some systems that actually you don't really have to think about, and that have your money going to certain spots so that it's all organized and you know where it's all going, and you can be organized from the beginning, and that decreases your stress level like tenfold. So for beginners, it's just get ahead of your money stuff and build in some organizing principles and systems for your money, so that you don't have to stress about that. And advanced people, it's really about fine-tuning your efficiency, I think, and analyzing your business's performance. So really, when it comes to advanced, it's like I like to look at analyzing the business performance from a profit level, from your cash flow. And these words might sound a little scary, but I think of cash flow as like just the basic rhythm heartbeat of your business. Like you want a nice smooth cash flow going through your business.
Life force.
Yeah. Your return on invested time and energy. We're looking at is your business adaptable and scalable? If something happens, can your business adapt on the fly and still be okay? And really making sure your business model is as efficient as possible for where you're trying to go and where the opportunities are to grow it, or where we need to let go of some things to make it more efficient. Yeah.
I love it. Beautiful. And during that time, we had people chatting in. Victoria says, great, thank you. I'm taking notes and I'm focused on this subconsciously and consciously. Awesome. Bringing it into both those planes. Rachel says, I'm taking notes and can appreciate the energetic intentions and repetitive actions of your habits. Yeah, the air piece is super helpful. Not sure about my identity, how it plays in, but I have a lot of debt. Okay, and Chris, I don't know if you want to speak to that during the time that we have. And then Aneshka says, thank you. I'm getting a budget together right now. Awesome. Yay.
For those of you who hate the word budget, use the word buckets. It makes such a huge difference. I know so many people are like, don't tell me to do a budget. Think of it as buckets. You're just putting your money into buckets. There's another one.
Zoe, I feel like tracking money, budgets, documentation is time and attention consuming. Can Chris make some recommendations for habits or systems that are easy to implement and maintain? Yeah.
Yes, it is time consuming. However, if you don't do it and you leave it up to someone like an accountant or bookkeeper, you can get in big trouble and not have a finger on the pulse of what's actually happening in your business. And that's how businesses go out of business really quickly. So it may take some time. And once you have a rhythm for how you track your money and read your reports that you create for your business, you are going to be so thankful you did, because that's how you actually grow your business. If your business doesn't have cash, you don't have a business. So it is really important to keep your finger on the pulse of where your cash is going and how much you have on hand. Or are you going to run out of cash in 90 days? Like, do you even know if your business is going to have money in 90 days? Having tracking systems for all that makes up in dividends for your business, because you stay out of trouble and you stay in business by tracking everything. Yeah. I think Michelle can attest to this, because I know I've helped Michelle organize her business money, and she's just like took it and ran with it. And she's like, I got this. Yeah. I bet you stressed a lot less than you did before.
Yeah. Chris gave me a couple really good recommendations that I'll share, because that's what I found really, really helpful. Primarily the book Profit First is what I used per Chris's recommendation. Oh, are you going to hold it up? Yeah. You got it right there. Yeah. People. Okay. So yes, that book, Profit First by Mike Hallowis, or however you say his name. Great, thanks. It changed the way that I do everything about my finances, and that was Chris's recommendation. And this is, again, I've Chris and I are friends and community members, friends, colleagues, etc. And she's done a lot of work to create really amazing resources. We're going to give you her website. We're going to give you a link back to her so you can continue to learn from her. But Profit First I read the book twice before I did anything. I'll say that. I read the book twice. I made notes. I made a list of all these different buckets to put money into. And then I marched over to my local credit union and I opened 14 bank accounts. And I totally just 180'd my financial identity in a relatively short time. I was one of the total flip people. But what I have done since then is, ever since I did that, and that was several months ago, I spend about an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending, every 2 weeks, going through all my expenses, my income, my finances, my spreadsheets, and that's it.
Yep.
So it takes me somewhere between 2 to 4 hours a month. That's it. Once every 2 weeks, to pay all my bills, write all the checks, send all the invoices, get all the payment, etc. up and running. But it took an initial investment of a lot of time and attention and learning in order to have the skill set that now I'm implementing pretty effortlessly.
Yep. And that's what every new skill set, which this might be very new for a lot of you, takes a lot of energy and has a learning curve to it. There's just no wiggle room around that. So, but what we want to impress on you guys is that making money and keeping money is just a skill set. And you have all the capabilities of learning that skill set, just like the rest of us. But you have to be dedicated to the time and energy to do that up front. But when you do, and you educate yourself and you give yourself that financial confidence because you're educated, it can be 5 minutes a day that you check in on the pulse of your business and you're good. And you have that peace of mind that everything's going the way you want it to. Mm-hmm. Because I guarantee you, cash problems in a business, there's no randomness to that. It's not like a surprise, oh, it's coming. You can see cash problems coming probably 90 days before they actually happen. But if you're not tracking anything, you're not going to see it's coming. And it's going to hit you like a semi-truck. And that's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, this same principle applies when we're looking at energetic anatomy and looking at our personal practice. We don't get sick randomly. We get sick because we've been neglecting our self-care, because we haven't been clearing our energy field, because we, all of these reasons, as, again, looking at what do Kat and I typically talk about on this podcast, everything else applies. Please, treat this as an invitation. Everything else that we're talking about in energetic hygiene, right? Making sure that you're really clear. Bring that level of clarity to your money. Make sure that you have the same level of impeccability and awareness of your wallet and your bank account as you do of your personal energy body and of your environment, because it is the same. If we're looking at, again, money equals life force. Money is a feedback of how are we treating our businesses and our life force. If we are lacking in money, we are not honoring our life force, because it is the money that will enable us to buy food, to get massages, to, pay rent. Money equals life force. And if, kind of bottom line right there, whatever you need to do in order to get over whatever it is that's keeping you from looking at this, that's one of the things that I had to do is I don't want to look at money. I'm really resistant to it because I didn't have a clear why. But then when I did money equals life force, I'm going to pay attention to what's giving me life force. I'm going to pay attention to my money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why I say, if you are tracking things, or if you're not tracking things, you can't tell what went wrong. Right. Yeah. So same thing with if you get sick out of the blue somewhere, it's probably not out of the blue. It's been building for 3 or 6 months, but the feedback, the end result, that's just a symptom. But the root was happening way before that symptom presented itself. Mm-hmm. So if you're not tracking those kind of things, it's just going to show up and feel like it's random, but it's not. It's all there in the data.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Chris, do you have any other, you held up profit first.
I've got some great ones. Yeah.
Great. Let's have it.
So this is great. This is called You Are a Badass at Making Money. Yeah. I think it's Jen Sincero is how you pronounce her last name. But this goes over, there's a lot of kind of questions where you can reflect and stuff, but it's all on money beliefs and mindset. So I think this is really great for people. If you guys love journaling, there's a lot of exercise in here. And then for actually like long-term planning, and I've recommended this to Michelle. I don't have the cover, but it's Unshakable by Tony Robbins.
There we go.
Wait, does that look right? There we go. If you're planning for like things like retirement, or do I need life insurance as an entrepreneur, or how do I trust a financial advisor? If you ever are diving into future planning for your money, that's a great book on how to steer you in the right direction and not get taken advantage of by that industry, basically. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And any other, I mean, we're going to send people back to you for the resources. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a quiz on my website that basically it's, what is your money motivator? And what that means is, why do you do what you do with money, and how does it show up in your business? So you can see why am I operating the way I am with money? And it gives you some really cool insights as to why you might be doing what you're doing with money based on how you're driven by your motivation. So it's kind of neat. It gives you a little awareness tool. And I will also be creating some kind of beginner financial foundation guides for creative entrepreneurs in the next month, so that people can start to get their feet wet on the basics and really set themselves up to succeed in the future. So
awesome. Thank you. And I just put that in the chat box. So her website, chriswilborn.com. And for those of you who are calling in on the phone, that's Chris, spelled normally CHRIS, Wilborn, WILBORN.com. And it's just on the front page of the website, the Money Motivator Quiz. Somebody also chatted in asking, have you heard of the book Cash Flow Quadrant? And if so, any thoughts?
Yes, I have read that book. That is a great, talk about identity. This is actually a great book if you're curious about the identity shift it takes from going from an employee to self-employed to running an actual business where you don't have to do all the work, to being an investor, and how those 4 quadrants of identity are completely different mindsets and completely different behaviors. So, great foundational element if you want to get behind the mindset and behaviors of the differences between someone being an employee, a solopreneur, I'd call it, working for yourself, running a operational business that has a team versus, and you don't have to be there to run it, versus an investor where your money makes money for you. Kind of cool. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. And for everybody else, if you do have, we are running out of time. If you do have additional questions for Chris, can people email you?
Yeah. Put hello@ChristineWilborn.com up there.
Hello at.
The only difference there is it's ChristineWilborn.com.
But your website is chriswilborn.com.
Yeah.
That is tricky. Yeah. Don't go to the ChristineWilborn.com.
Well, it'll just redirect you to Chris Wilborn.
Beautiful. So yeah, please feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions.
Yeah.
And I do recommend taking the Money Motivator quiz. I took it and it was illuminating, and it was definitely like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So some good resources there. And Chris, any last parting words of wisdom?
No, thank you for having me, you both. I know that was a lot to digest, and money can be a tricky topic to talk about. So if you want to email me privately and have questions, I'm really happy to answer and help out any way I can.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. And to everybody else, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for tuning in. If you missed our last 2 September episodes, please go ahead and check them out. There's some really awesome content in there. We did the business of healing for the first week in September. And then last week, again, prosperity consciousness. And next Tuesday, normal time, 1 o'clock Pacific time, we have conscious entrepreneurship. So we'll be looking at what does it mean to be not only a practitioner, but to actually serve in a professional capacity as a conscious entrepreneur and bring a new archetype and new paradigm to not only the healing world, but to the business world itself. So thank you for joining us, and happy equinox. We did not do an equinox ceremony episode this time, but we'll be back ceremonially in the winter for the winter solstice. Kat, any updates real quick?
No, I'm good. The next thing in my little prison, it's a little choppy over here for me, so I'm just going to
okay.
figure it out.
Let's switch it out.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, never mind. All right. Chris, thanks for joining. And for those go ahead and circle back. You can follow and find all the rest of our episodes at our YouTube channel, Shaman Sister Sessions. Go ahead and check out shamansistersessions.com with links to our iTunes and our Stitcher pages as well, in case you missed any past episodes. And speaking of money, this is our request that we issue every week. It does take money to run this behind the scenes. And so in order to continue for us to offer this as a free offering to you, we ask for a donation if you have found this in any way helpful. Even $1 per month is helpful. And you can go ahead and do that at patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions. That's patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions. Patreon.com/Shaman Sister Sessions. Beautiful. So thank you for your support and continuing to enable us to offer this workout to you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.